What if I told you that the reality you know is an illusion, that time and space are merely mental constructs, and that human consciousness has the power to transcend these barriers? Jacobo Grinberg made a discovery that could change everything we know about reality. The world we see isn't real in the way we think. According to him, the human mind doesn't just interpret reality, it creates it, shaping time and space as a projection within a vast field of information. If that were true, it would mean that the limits of the physical world are nothing more than an illusion. We could break through invisible barriers and access dimensions beyond human understanding. But there was one thing missing: concrete proof. Then Robert Monroe appeared. Where Grinberg's ideas remained theoretical, Monroe put them into practice. A regular businessman, skeptical and rational, Monroe's life changed when he experienced an out-of-body state. He felt as if he were floating, moving through walls and traveling to unknown places. Both frightened and fascinated, he decided to investigate this phenomenon and uncovered patterns, techniques, and a method to consciously reproduce the experience. Monroe proved firsthand that Grinberg was right. Consciousness can break free from time and space. But this discovery did not go unnoticed. The United States government took an interest in the phenomenon. Secret projects were launched to explore this ability. Studies revealed that anyone could learn to access this hidden reality if they knew how. The question now is, are you ready to see the world with new eyes? If so, write in the comments, "My mind is free and limitless." But a word of warning: once you understand what comes next, you will never see reality the same way again. The reality we live in seems solid and unquestionable. Time traps us, space confines us, and everything around us follows fixed rules. But what if these barriers are merely an illusion? What if the human mind has the power to transcend these limitations, access hidden dimensions, and shape our very experience of reality? Jacobo Grinberg believed just that. His studies suggested that reality is a projection created by the mind interacting with a larger informational field. This could explain phenomena considered paranormal, such as visions, telepathy, and altered states of consciousness. But if reality isn't fixed, why are we so bound by its rules? The answer lies in the mental programming we receive from birth. From a young age, we're taught that the physical world is all there is, that time is linear, that we can't be in two places at once, that our body defines us. This collective belief grows stronger each day, and the more we buy into it, the more we imprison ourselves within an invisible mental game. Yet, there are those who break this cycle. People who, whether naturally or through learned techniques, manage to escape the confines of ordinary perception. Robert Monroe was one of them. When Monroe began experiencing out-of-body states, he realized that the world was not as it seemed. He discovered that his consciousness could travel beyond the physical realm, explore other dimensions, and even access information normally beyond reach. But he didn't stop there. Determined to delve deeper, he developed methods to deliberately induce these states, proving that the mind isn't confined to matter. And here lies the real problem. If we have this capacity, why can so few harness it? Because we've been conditioned to believe it's impossible. Our minds are caught in a constant flow of thoughts that reinforce the illusion of the physical world. And more than that, there are forces that don't want you to know the truth. Monroe found that his research had caught the attention of certain sectors of the US government. Secret studies were conducted to understand how consciousness might transcend time and space. Imagine what would happen if this information were widely known, how it would change the way we perceive the world. What you're about to learn might be the key to breaking the barriers of your own mind and accessing a new reality. But first, we need to understand why conventional science still tries to ignore this knowledge. What Jacobo Grinberg and Robert Monroe discovered aren't mere speculative theories. Their work is backed by decades of scientific research, practical experiments, and even the interest of government agencies. Jacobo Grinberg, a Mexican neuroscientist, dedicated his life to understanding how the mind constructs reality. Inspired by shamanic traditions and quantum physics, he formulated the neuronal field theory, suggesting that there is an invisible network of information connecting all things. According to Grinberg, our brain doesn't create consciousness, but acts as a modulator of this network, translating frequencies from a higher field. This means that reality isn't fixed, but rather a mental projection shaped by the way we interpret it. While Grinberg was searching for scientific explanations, Robert Monroe was living these realities firsthand. He documented his out-of-body experiences and developed hemisync technology, which uses sound frequencies to synchronize the brain's hemispheres and facilitate altered states of consciousness. His work attracted the attention of the US government, which launched secret studies on the subject, including the famous Gateway Process, a declassified CIA study on how the mind can transcend time and space. These discoveries are not fiction. They are concrete evidence that our consciousness isn't confined to the physical body. And now, you're about to learn how to access this hidden reality. Imagine a hologram. Each part of it contains the whole image. Grinberg suggested that the mind works in a similar way, shaping reality based on the information it can access from that field. This means that the physical world we perceive might be just a reflection of a deeper level of existence. What's even more impressive is that this theory resonates with quantum physics itself. The famous double-slit experiment demonstrated that merely observing a particle changes its behavior. This suggests that consciousness can directly affect the structure of reality, a concept Grinberg sought to prove through studies with Mexican shamans. He argued that these ancient practices revealed how a trained mind could manipulate time, space, and even access information beyond common perception. But if reality can be molded by consciousness, what stops us from consciously manipulating it? Grinberg believed that the answer lay in mental conditioning. From early on, we are programmed to see the world as fixed and immutable. But if we break free from that programming, it's possible to access deeper levels of perception and interact with the universe in entirely new ways. And that's exactly what Robert Monroe discovered in practice. While Jacobo Grinberg was busy seeking a scientific explanation for how the mind shapes reality, Robert Monroe was experiencing it directly. He wasn't a student of the occult, nor someone interested in paranormal phenomena. On the contrary, he was a successful businessman in the broadcasting industry until he began having experiences that challenged his understanding of the world. It all started unexpectedly. Monroe began feeling strong vibrations while sleeping, followed by a sensation of floating outside his own body. At first, he thought he was dreaming, but the experiences grew increasingly vivid and frequent. He could see himself from above, move through walls, travel to unknown places, and even encounter entities that seemed to exist in other dimensions. What impressed him most was the clarity of these experiences. They weren't vague dreams or hallucinations. They were as real as waking life. Monroe realized that his consciousness wasn't confined to his physical body and that there were layers of reality most people never perceived. Determined to understand what was happening, he began documenting his out-of-body journeys. He experimented with various techniques to consciously induce these states and tested the limits of what he could do while outside his physical form. His accounts soon caught the attention of scientists and researchers who began studying the phenomenon. Then Monroe took it a step further. He founded the Monroe Institute and developed hemisync technology, a system based on using specific sound frequencies to induce altered states of consciousness. Through this method, he taught others how to access these states and experience for themselves what he had discovered. Monroe demonstrated in practice what Grinberg had theorized. Reality is not fixed, and consciousness can escape the limitations of time and space. But this discovery didn't go unnoticed. The US government became extremely interested in these findings, and that's how one of the CIA's most secret projects was born, the Gateway Process. When Robert Monroe started documenting his out-of-body experiences and teaching others how to replicate them, something unexpected happened. The US government took a deep interest in the phenomenon. During the 1970s and 80s, in the midst of the Cold War, the CIA was looking for any strategic advantage over its enemies. What Monroe was developing wasn't just a mystical or philosophical experiment. It was a real technology to expand human consciousness and access information beyond our physical senses. This could mean remote viewing, communication beyond conventional barriers, and even manipulation of our perception of time and space. Thus was born the Gateway Process, an ultra-secret CIA study based on Monroe's hemisync technology. Declassified documents revealed that the project's goal was to understand and train individuals to explore altered states of consciousness and access information beyond the limitations of the physical world. The official report describes how the human brain can be trained to synchronize its hemispheres through sound frequencies, creating a state of mental coherence that allows for the perception of alternate realities. This state was described as a direct connection to a universal energy field, a concept very similar to what Jacobo Grinberg called the neuronal field. Participants in the program reported extraordinary experiences: remote viewing, the ability to see distant places without being physically present, out-of-body experiences, similar to Monroe's, where consciousness seemed to separate from the physical body, perception of parallel realities, states where time and space appeared to dissolve. But what shocked researchers the most was an alarming conclusion. Reality as we know it is merely a holographic construction of the mind. The Gateway Process suggested that by accessing this expanded state, an individual could literally transcend the illusion of matter and interact with an infinite field of information. If this research has come this far, why haven't we heard more about it? Perhaps because the true power of the mind is something not everyone wants you to discover. Now, let's explore an even deeper theory: the universe as a hologram, and what that means for the manipulation of time and space. If reality is merely a mental construct, as suggested by Jacobo Grinberg and the Gateway Process report, then an inevitable question arises. What is the universe really? The answer might lie in the holographic universe theory. This idea, championed by physicists like David Bohm and supported by quantum evidence, proposes that the universe functions like a hologram, where every part contains the information of the whole. This means that time, space, and matter could be nothing more than projections from a deeper level of reality, a concept strikingly similar to Grinberg's neuronal field. This theory explains a number of phenomena that defy conventional physics. For example, studies on black holes have revealed that the information contained within them doesn't disappear, but may be stored on a two-dimensional surface, like a hologram projecting the three-dimensional world we perceive. If this hypothesis is correct, it means that time and space are just illusions our mind creates to organize information, and that our consciousness can access them in unconventional ways. This connects directly with Robert Monroe's experiences. When he ventured out of his body, he realized that time wasn't linear. He could visit the past, the future, and even access parallel realities. This perception aligns perfectly with the conclusions of the Gateway Process. Time isn't fixed, but a fluid field navigable by the mind. The most astonishing implication is that matter itself can be manipulated by the mind. If reality is a hologram and the mind acts as the projector of that experience, then by changing our frequency of perception, we can literally change the reality around us. But how do we do that in practice? How can we access these expanded states and break the barriers of time and space? If consciousness isn't confined to the physical body and reality is only a mental projection, the key is reprogramming our perception and inducing altered states of consciousness. Both Jacobo Grinberg and Robert Monroe suggested that the way to transcend time and space is to rewire our mental conditioning. However, achieving this expansion requires discipline and practice. The first step in breaking free from the confines of conventional reality is to stop blindly identifying with the physical world. From childhood, we are conditioned to believe that we are merely matter and that time is linear and absolute. Yet Monroe's out-of-body experiences proved that consciousness can exist independently of the body and that time and space are mental barriers that can be overcome. In order to experience this freedom, one must learn to quiet the analytical mind and access deeper states of perception. One of the most effective techniques for this was developed by Monroe and refined at his institute, synchronizing the brain's hemispheres through specific sound frequencies, a method known as hemisync. This technology uses binaural beats to guide the brain into a state of deep relaxation while keeping the mind alert, facilitating experiences like astral projection and remote viewing. The process involves lying in a quiet environment, using headphones to listen to the correct frequencies and allowing your mind to detach from sensory distractions until you reach that vibrational state, when many report feeling as if they're floating and separating from their body. Jacobo Grinberg, on the other hand, focused on mental training to access the neuronal field, the invisible matrix that shapes our experience. He believed the mind can be trained to perceive beyond the illusions of the physical world. A fundamental technique in this process is expanded attention, which involves maintaining a constant state of open observation without labeling or judging the stimuli around you. This allows perception to go beyond common conditioning, enabling more direct access to the informational field. Another essential practice is active visualization, where one imagines dissolving the physical body and merging with the universe, breaking the belief in separation between mind and matter. There is also a powerful exercise to alter one's perception of time called temporal dissociation. This method involves visualizing a past moment and feeling it as if it were happening now, and then doing the same with a future event, bringing it into the present. This exercise trains the mind to operate outside the linear flow of time, facilitating experiences of precognition and expanded perception. All these techniques share a common goal: to break away from the fixed reality paradigm and allow consciousness to freely navigate an infinite universe of possibilities. When practiced consistently, they not only broaden perception but also transform the way we interact with reality. Imagine for a moment that everything you believe to be immutable, time, space, even your body, is nothing more than a temporary structure supported by your mind. Now think of how many times you've experienced inexplicable intuitions, intense déjà vu, or dreams so vivid they felt more real than your waking life. Were these just random brain activity or glimpses of an expanded state of consciousness? Robert Monroe and Jacobo Grinberg spent years exploring these questions and arrived at the same conclusion. Reality can be manipulated if we know how to interact with it consciously. The truth is, you've experienced this before, even without realizing it. Think of those moments when you enter a state of flow, completely losing track of time, or when you feel mentally present in a place you've never physically visited. These are signs that your consciousness can shift beyond the limitations imposed by the rational mind. Monroe's hemisync methods and Grinberg's perceptual reprogramming are more than just theories. They are maps that unlock a potential that already exists within you. Many people try these practices without success because they're still held back by fear and the conditioning that tells them such experiences are impossible. In reality, the only thing stopping you from accessing these states is your own belief that you can't. What if, tonight before bed, you tried the temporal dissociation technique? Close your eyes and bring a past moment to your mind, reliving it with full intensity, experiencing every detail as if it were happening now. Then shortly after, do the same with a future desire, feeling it as a certainty. What would happen if your mind began to operate beyond the confines of time? The question is no longer whether it's possible, it's whether you're ready to experience it for yourself. Now that you understand that reality isn't fixed and that the mind can transcend the barriers of time and space, the remaining question is, what will you do with this knowledge? Most people will hear this message, feel a fleeting impact, and then return to their routine, trapped in a limited perception of reality. But a few, perhaps you are one of them, will feel the call to go further, to test, explore, and experience this truth on their own. So here's the challenge. Tonight, before you sleep, try the temporal dissociation technique. Close your eyes, choose a moment from your past, and relive it as if it were happening right now. Then, do the same with a future desire. Feel it as something already realized. Repeat this exercise for a few minutes every day and observe how your perception begins to change. If you truly wish to expand your consciousness, write in the comments, "I choose to transcend time and space." This simple act strengthens your intention and reinforces your commitment to this journey. Subscribe to the channel and share this with a friend who might find this content interesting. Until next time.